Previously on Anglican Identity.
Anglican Christianity begins with an encounter with God through the person of Jesus of Nazareth.
Anglicans talk about encountering God through three sources:
the scriptures, tradition, and reason.
In our last episode of Anglican Identity, we talked about the Anglican focus on ideas of scripture, tradition, and reason. The tradition of the Church comes to us from a long history of faithful people stretching back in time. So why does that history matter?
What I value about the historical aspect of the way in which we practice Christianity in the Anglican tradition is that it's constant, it's moving. We don't stay in one point. We evolve and we're creative and imaginative and we move, but we're also connected to everything that's been before.
Look, we have a great treasure to share. There's a deep history of spirituality, expression of faith, and faithful men and women from millennia who've all tried to kind of struggle with this idea of what it means to be in relationship with God over the centuries.
History offers us lots of lessons of what to do and what not to do, but there's a constant throughout history. We are all human and we have lots to refer back to.
What I value about the historical foundations of Anglicanism is there's this long continuity with other parts of the Christian faith. And it goes Roman times in England right through to the connection with the Reformation. So it's not just a bit of time, there is some long traditions and depth to call in on that experience.
Do you remember Jonathan Sargent talking about the Lambeth Quadrilateral in the last episode? Well, Anglicanism had been in existence for a considerable period of time before that Lambeth statement was developed. The Church's history is another source of information about Anglican faith. The website anglican.org notes there is a public perception that Henry VIII created the Anglican Church in anger over the Pope's refusal to grant his divorce. But the historical record indicates that Henry spent much of his reign challenging the authority of the Roman Catholic Church. Henry's divorce issue was just one of a series of acts that collectively split the English Church from the Roman Church. The truth is that the idea of a distinctive church in England is one that goes back a long, long way. The arrival of St. Augustine of Canterbury in England at the end of the 6th century is traditionally regarded as the beginnings of the English Church, but there is evidence to suggest the true origins may in fact date back as early as the 1st century. It was then, during the Roman occupation, that Christianity may have laid its foundations in Britain.
The fact that there are many churches in England named after St Alban, the first British Christian martyr in the 3rd century CE, also suggests early origins for an English form of Christianity. Celtic Christianity, a precursor of the Anglican Church, retained its distinctive form even after a synod decision in 664 CE tried to suppress it. Along with the incorporation of some local customs and festivals, the popularity of Celtic Christianity ensured that English Christianity would retain a particular local flavour with its distinctive spirituality friendlier to women and more connected with nature. It is not widely known that the organisational structure of the Church of England was set in place by a synod decision in 673 CE. That decision allowed local bishops to act under the leadership of the Archbishop of Canterbury. This is a long time before Henry VIII. If we then fast forward nearly 1,000 years to the 16th century, the Reformation brought great change. Acts of Parliament in the 1530s created a separation from Rome, declaring the English monarchy as the only supreme head in earth of the Church of England, called Ecclesia Anglicana, and that the Pope had no greater jurisdiction in England than any other foreign bishop.
Whilst not trying to deny the motivation of Henry VIII to secure a male heir through a succession of consorts, the legislation suggests the king wasn't trying to found a new church. Since Constantine the Great in the 4th century, European monarchs had exercised powers over the church in their dominions. In one sense, Henry was playing catch-up with other European leaders by making himself head of the national church. During this period, the first Book of Common Prayer was published in 1549. The first prayer book in English, along with the introduction of English in all public worship, meant that a new kind of church was emerging. The Anglican Church blossomed during the Reformation period when the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, articulated a distinctive Anglican theology. Richard Hooker and others developed this Anglican theology further in that initial period. But back in the 16th century, if there was a glue that held society together, religious life was that glue.
Henry's daughter, Elizabeth I, certainly thought that a church with a common form of worship and a doctrinal system that allowed assent from a wide range of theological perspectives might provide that glue. Most supported that moderate system, but there was opposition. That came from Puritans at one end, and those with the loyalty to the idea of papal supremacy at the other. The glue was severely tested. Up until Oliver Cromwell's English Civil War, the swing between those extreme ends of the spectrum was pronounced. With the Protectorate of the Commonwealth of England, 1649 to 1660, Anglicanism was disestablished and a more Puritan system introduced. Church interiors and garments became very plain, as just about anything that looked or sounded Catholic was reviled. Crucifixes were removed. Even religious art was thrown out.
And then, during King Charles II's Restoration period in the 1660s, the Puritans lost favour. An almost Elizabethan form of Anglicanism was reintroduced. Significantly, though, Anglicanism now had to acknowledge other denominational structures. It could no longer claim an all-encompassing nationwide membership. Anglican Christianity's commitment to acknowledgement other Christian denominations and faith as valid continues to this day. You can trace lines through these events to our country too. British colonialism spread the Church of England around the world. In 1981, what had been known as the Church of England here became the Anglican Church of Australia. Our current local prayer book, called A Prayer Book for Australia, was published in 1995. Worldwide, though, each country's form of Anglican Church is autonomous. There is no central administration of the Anglican Church worldwide. There is no Pope or President or Chief Executive who can hire or fire. So, what unifies this worldwide Anglican Church? Ultimately, three things unite Anglicans: belief, tradition, and agreement. The coordination of that unity is achieved through something called the Anglican Communion, our name for the global family of Anglican churches. More on that later.
Next time on Anglican Identity.
It's a useful list that highlights some of the things that are distinctive about Anglicanism.
Anglican worship is much more than a performance to be observed or listened to.
In any Eucharist, Christ is present in multiple ways.
But the Anglican Church is broad and makes space for many voices, and each voice takes care to make space for others.